let's just begin with a very simple question, because the contrast between what's happened in Venezuela and what's happening in Iran is the spine of what I'm going to talk about. It's a tactical success that may carry strategic consequences far beyond its immediate aim. So I'm going to introduce what I'm concerned about today, but then I'm going to get into that in more detail next week, because I really want to think about all of this. Will the seeming success in Venezuela's model, now executed in Iran, swift, decisive, and executed without any prior congressional approval? That's the piece, that last piece. You know, it's emboldened even more brazen future moves. That's my concern. And so what I'm seeing is a pattern that is evolving. And, you know, why is it so different? Well, the Strait of Hormuz isn't just any waterway. It's a critical choke point for global trade. If it stays closed, it could lead to severe economic disruptions and lots of inflation, which is why you see the markets doing what they're doing. And I'm going to get to what's happening in the gold and the spot gold and the spot silver markets, as well as the physical markets, in a second. But quite honestly, rising prices and potentially even more military conflicts between countries that rely on the Straits of Hormuz and many other areas that are being disrupted right now. Those conflicts between countries, well, they rely on this route. And Iran is not just going after Israel and the U.S., as you might know, it's going to their neighbors as well. And that sets up for a much larger fight, potentially pulling a lot of countries, maybe the whole world. Maybe this is the conflict that brings us into officially World War III, which I'm going to get back to that in a minute too. But just keep in mind that, please, removing an abusive dictator, I am all for, because I want the public to have their power back. And of course, it can be morally understandable. Yay, he's gone. It's a relief to the suppressed and the abused public, but the process matters for legitimacy and risk, of which, quite honestly, there are a lot of layers. And here's the potential lesson. Precedence shapes expectations, and expectations shape behavior. In this article and I haven't had a chance to read the whole article yet, but rising anxiety. Many in Cuba wonder if the United States will attack their country next. Just saying. So, frankly, Iran's public reaction is not a surprise, because they have vowed that Jerusalem, Washington will suffer the consequences for the killing of their leader. This growing conflict is beginning to involve more and more countries, and it threatens U.S. military bases. We've seen U.S. troops die as blasts shake Mideast, fear of wider war after Iran's response. The public is divided there. You know, there are some that actually were enamored and supported the Ayatollah, and many that were oppressed by him. So you have sorrow and joy, fear and hope, and the rising threat of this broader war perhaps being the final trigger, making World War III fully visible. That makes for a future, quite honestly, for all of us, that's cloudy to see, which is why it is so important to go back to basics. Gold and silver have been money for thousands of years, not through this conflict or that conflict, but through every single one of them, and they've made it through without the loss of purchasing power. So The retaliation, well, frankly, that's crystal clear, because war is one of the constants in currency regime shifts. And what you're looking at here, I just pulled this morning, so I have no annotations on it, but you're looking at where Iran has dropped bombs and where the US and Israel have dropped bombs into Iran. Look, it justifies inflation. They can point a finger and go, well, it's not us doing this, even though that's what they are going to do and that they do. It's the war and the absence of transparent collective decision-making that amplifies the perception that force, without going through required channels, it's viable. Do what you want and then ask for forgiveness later. It's a lower cost tool because it can happen just like that. And I mean, the question is, once things are done, can they be undone? Maybe, maybe not. It kind of depends. But what about that ongoing shift in global allegiances? Does this not solidify that? Because unlike the Venezuela case, the theater here touches critical global choke points and critical global leaders. Here is the UN saying, no, we don't go along with that. Now, this is one person in the UN, not the whole UN. But President Trump threatens Iran with a force never seen before. And while we were told that this is just going to be about a 4 or 5 week operation, President Trump foresees extended attack on Iran as U.S. adds troops and jets to the region. Is this going to be a constant war like we had in Afghanistan? I don't know. I just happen to have one of the Iranian rial currencies, that 10,000 rials that have absolutely zero value. I can't buy anything with this. And is that going to get worse for the people of Iran, whether they were abused or not abused? This is a huge deal and used to justify a lot of what's going on. Because Congress, well, what if they are actually forced to now grant this war? We just went through the strike down of the IEEPA, the EPA tariffs. Well, that kind of would give President Trump a much broader base for those tariffs. If Congress actually declares that we are in war, then a law that was put into place in 1917 that is still legal, that also can be put in place. And that gives the president much broader powers than he has right now and that he's even taken so far. So it's kind of critical that we understand what's going on. And again, I wanted to pull the data as close to when I was coming on air as I possibly could. So this is the spot silver contract. And you can see when I ran the numbers, so this is as of yesterday's close, right? But even as of yesterday's close, we've spoken so much about the 200-day moving average. Spot silver, even with the correction that the contract has had over the last couple of days, Friday, Monday, and today, as of last night, it was still over 68% above the 200-day moving average. 10% is a lot. What's 68%? These corrections don't really mean anything. And I'm going to show you this a little bit more too. I wanted to remind you that with silver, there is a finite amount in the physical world. In the contract world, there is an infinite amount. It's just about buying and selling it as a trade. But silver is not a trade. It is a fuse. That's why you see it so volatile. It's an indication of what's going on, but there is a finite amount of it, with 36 different or more global users. So the physical world is very different than the paper world, though still it guides it to a degree. But keep in mind, there is a finite amount of it, as there is with gold. Now, I didn't even have a chance to draw the lines on it this time, but you can see that even with the spot gold contract, as of yesterday, it was still 35.21% above that 200-day moving average. And remember, 10% is a lot. So all of these normal corrections are just giving that 200-day moving average a chance to catch up. But you also have to understand that when stock markets and bond markets implode, when they go down, right, then these entities that bought these contracts on margin, right, in other words, bought these contracts with borrowed money, they have to come up with more money. And so they sell off the contracts that the market will bear. And so here, what you're looking at in this chart was this morning with spot gold down about $53 or $153, something like that. It still doesn't even take us near that 200-day moving average. And a lot of it, U.S. equity indexes fall sharply in early trading. They needed to come up with money. It's that simple. This is for a trade. What you and I are talking about is a strategy, not a trade. It's a long-term strategy, and it's based on many things. But you guys know, like silver, there is a finite amount of gold, and it's used in 33 different corners of the world, probably more. Those were just the ones that I could think of. And it is the anchor. So it's not nearly as volatile as silver, but you got to have both. And the Zang International sound money strategy is built in layers. That, yep, it does. It includes a level of cash, and I'm showing you the Iranian rial that I can't buy anything with. And I'm also showing you my Zimbabwean $10 trillion note that I can't buy anything with. And let's face it, even dollars, when I go to look for them, I don't know why I can only just find the small ones. But there was a time when $100, that was a lot of money. You could buy all your groceries you needed for a week and then some. Today, the only reason why any of it has any level of purchasing power is because you're still willing to work for it and use it as your tool of barter. But that too is going away, because what all of this will do is create much more rapid inflation. And when they talk about inflation going down, I love how they use those terms, because in your mind, when you hear, oh, inflation is down, what you think is prices have cut back, but that's not really the case, and that's not what they mean. What they really mean is that the rate and speed of the increase has slowed a bit. Well, this will speed it up. It'll speed it up in droves. And keeping in mind that in any con game, you got to have that confidence, and you got to have that new money. And that's what war justifies, is printing all of this money, because all of these troops and all of the equipment, right? Here's a little lesson for you. There are two types of debt. Self-liquidating debt. So that would be if I borrowed money to expand my business and thus attracted more customers, and those customers ultimately they're buying goods from me and I can pay that debt off. So that's self-liquidating debt. But all of this is all what's called non-self-liquidating debt. So they build a bomb that costs however much, millions, billions of dollars, and they blow it up. Well, they're never getting that money back. On yours and my level, that would be basically like a credit card. I go shopping, I put a whole bunch of stuff on the credit card. That stuff isn't going to generate income to pay itself off. That money has to come from someplace else. And the industrial military complex gets a lot of taxpayer money. Now they're going to get more, but building all of these bombs and sending all of those troops, you will see more rapid inflation. And since the level of confidence is like razor thin, I mean, I am just waiting for one little bit to push it to the lowest level ever. That, my friends, to me, will be a major technical piece, a major technical systemic shift. And we'll be talking about it in the day that it happens. And this could make it even closer to that. So I had a couple more little, okay. So this is there have been a few things also that I wanted to talk about that have come back to me from my meeting yesterday at the Zang International headquarters. And one of the things is that people are concerned about the spot markets for both gold and silver being so high. It's all in relative terms and it's all in dollar terms. So I got to tell you that it doesn't really matter if you understand how much something is really worth, because there are two guarantees that I can give you. I will show up and do the work. You see that every week. But here's the other guarantee. At some point, all assets move to their true fundamental value. What's the fundamental value of this stuff? Well, the Federal Reserve purchasing power of the consumer dollar tells you all the time. It's actually the same as this, which is zero. It's a big fat zero. But the fundamental value of gold and silver, well, let's do that exercise again, because this is sound money. This is fiat money. They're both money. They're just the flip side of the coin. Governments create this. Corporations, I should say, corporations create this, because that's what the Federal Reserve is. God created this. So gold and silver are the only true forms of money that were not created by man. And every other, no exceptions, every other money that was created by man has gone the way of the dodo bird. It simply loses all value when the confidence is lost. So how much is this really worth? Is $5,000 an ounce a lot? Is $10,000 an ounce a lot? Yeah, I know you wish you'd have bought it at 248 or, I don't know, how about $20? Because that's what it was once. But based on the most current data that I was able to pull for the level of debt, which is what creates the fiat money. So you use that as a proxy for all the money that's out there. And as I showed you, with physical gold and physical silver, both of this is the same, there's a finite amount. That means that this one little ounce that I'm holding in my hand, it's not worth $5,000 or $10,000. It's worth $36,000. Well, when you go to the store and something is on sale that you know is typically worth a lot more than what they have it on sale for, what do? Do you go, no, I don't want to buy it yet because maybe the price will get a little cheaper? Or do you buy all you can fit in your cart? That's what I do. That's what most people do. Do not be fooled by the lies, because we will come to a point where we will not even be able to lay this in other words, buy it. So you do it when you can, as you can, and get that strategy in place and executed. And if spot gold, if gold, not spot, if the true value of an ounce of gold is $36,000, then that means that the true value of an ounce of silver is $1,800, not $100 or $90 or $80 or $70. It's a flipping bargain. And so what should you do? Continue to accumulate while you can execute the full strategy. Because frankly, there's gold and then there's gold. There's silver and then there's silver. What do you want for your protection? You need to have A lot of all of the above, right? Because it depends on what it is that you're trying to accomplish. And I have to remind you of this because it's critically clear, and I haven't shown you this for a while. But this is a paper from the Bank for International Settlements. Who are they? They're the central banker's central bank. So you could say that they are the biggest and most important bank in the world. And they did a study on what share for gold on the interaction of gold and foreign exchange reserves. Okay, and what do they say about gold? Well, first, they say that gold is an asset viewed by many as durable and largely imperishable. Yeah, it is, right? It's indestructible. It's one reason that it can be the primary currency metal. And it refers to it free of default risk. The BOPM, precious metals, clearly establishes that gold bullion is the only case of a financial asset with no counterparty risk. No counterparty risk. It's not entirely true on bullion because there is the confiscation risk. That's why personally, because I lived through that myself, I lived through it. This is not hearsay. This, in 1964, my uncle had at least 3,000 ounces of these because this was the only legal way to hold it. It's significant. So, gold, the only financial asset that runs no counterparty risk. Unlike currencies and debt, which are claims on foreign governments or institutions, gold kept at home is not subject to political manipulation. These are not my words, my friends. These are the Banks for International Settlements, and you could go read them yourselves in the conclusion. Third, gold has been empirically proven to serve as an inflation hedge, at least over longer periods of time. So yeah, anything can happen in this paper manipulation. That's easy peasy. But what we're seeing right now, you better have gold and silver in place. What if this is officially World War III? You could easily lose your ability to position into this. Don't let that happen. I'm telling you, you don't want that to happen. I would rather be 10 years too early than 1 second too late, because that's when I lose all of my choices. And fourth, last, its most widely recognized feature is its potential value in highly adverse scenarios. I don't know, you guys. And this is just one, right? We've been watching what's happening in the stock markets, in the bond markets, in the currency markets, in the money markets, in the private equity market, where they're right now not putting up gates to stop you. I'm going to be recording a video on that. You need to pay attention to that one a lot too. You know, if all your wealth is held in the intangible markets and those markets say no, you have no other choice, period. And I know 100% that together, 3% of the global population, just 3%, can get sound money back in the system again. We got a shot. Let's take that shot while it's available. Let's grow this sound money movement. Citizens for sound money. Let's grow this movement globally, and let's make a positive difference for everybody. We can do it. And until next we meet, please be safe out there. Bye-bye.